Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci. Welcome to CFL Talk. Boy, oh boy. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For this show and open forum and other news entertainment programs we offer, please tune in. You can also see my YouTube channel and get all the information you want about the CFL and about 9 million other things because I can't concentrate on anything. I'm so dyslexic. Um, so this is about the CFL. And David, we talked last week about, the way it might go. Um, I was 50%. I was right and I was wrong. I have to say though, my concern for BC was the quarterback and whether he was going to be healthy enough to carry the team. And he just pulled them across the finish line, if you will. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it again next week.
Well, the big one is is the pain management too. So Farhan Lalji said that the good thing is he played that game without like any injections or anything.
Right.
Um, so like that's the important thing there is that um, how is he going to be now going into the cold weather? How is he going to be going to
Mhm.
each game as he continues to play? And that
And
that
cold is a nice way of putting
yeah,
Saskatchewan if they get past Winnipeg.
exactly, right? So it's not like cold weather tends to make injuries flare up a bit more just because it's not good for the body to be exposed to that type of environment. But, you know, we know the injury is not 100%, but can he do well at not being 100%? That was the big question going into this game.
Yeah, that's why I thought Calgary would win, but I think really as much as he was the impact player in that game, the defense of BC, I can't believe it, to be honest with you, that they shut down Calgary the way they did.
Yeah. No, that was a bigger surprise, I think. Like that was going to be a key that they needed to do to win the game, but I didn't expect it
Absolutely.
to be to that degree. And I did not expect Bo Levi Mitchell to be in this game. Not at all.
Well, the front half of what you said is what led to the back half. If they had been better, they wouldn't have needed to try him,
Yeah.
right? That was the move that they needed to make because things weren't going the way they hoped. And I have to say that BC's offense, um, I don't know. I think you know with with their young quarterback, I think it's different than it is with Adams.
Yeah. I think so.
And it has to be the kid that's out there come Sunday.
It has to be. No, it has to be. Look,
They're not going
the
to beat Winnipeg without him.
the receivers made it known after the game that playing with like Nathan Rourke is different. He's special. They have a better sense of confidence when he's playing. Like they were making catches out there that you're just like, what a throw, but it's also what a catch. The confidence that they play with when Nathan Rourke is in, it's apparent. It's definitely apparent.
Well, the catch radius is wide. It was wide, I should say, was wide in this game. He made some throws. Many were on the button, but some of them were just good enough to be in the catch radius of a player, um, not outside the catch radius. And I think that's what makes him so special. Even when the shots that he misses, he doesn't miss by much. And because of that, it gives the receivers an opportunity to catch the ball. And I think that's what makes the kid so special is his accuracy and timing, of course. But
Well, yeah, timing, accuracy, how the ball comes out, where it's coming out. Like it's not every quarterback throws the ball the same way. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, right? So every receiver gets used to one guy. This is why teams don't like to make too many quarterback changes because it changes the entire offense, how the rhythm of it goes, how everything goes. You can mimic certain things, you can mimic certain movements, certain rhythms, timing, but you can't totally the timing factor, how the ball comes out, where it's coming up. That's totally different. I've watched enough quarterbacks in practices, and I see all three of them throw a football at the same time, and they're not all the same.
No.
It just does not happen usually.
And there's a reason why a quarterback is called the number one quarterback. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the game specifically, and we'll start in the East, the game that was played first. And Hamilton came up short against Montreal 28-17. Um, this one here was played out without any surprises in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. This was a weird game to kind of judge too, right? We went into this playoffs not knowing exactly. Like, we had a hard time predicting. Like, you came into saying either team could have won, right? Like, that's just how unpredictable it was. But then you see the result, and you're just like, yeah, I can get that. I can understand that.
Yeah, um, it ended up the way I figured. If they're well, Hamilton, I picked Montreal because I felt that Evans could not beat Montreal. I still believe that, and I said last week that if there was a quarterback that was going to beat Montreal and or Toronto, it would be Schiltz. I just think that Evans' confidence level um, is very low. Even when he's making great passes, which he did in that game, there's always that you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's been consistent about him since Mazzoli went to Ottawa, is that Evans throws interceptions, and the trouble with that is that you can count on it. And again, another interception in this game. But I have to say that he played much better than I thought he was going to play. But it still didn't help Hamilton win. I have to say, I knew that Harris would be the Harris quarterback that we're accustomed to. This is a guy who threw 5 touchdown passes in a playoff game. He's been able to do stuff like this, and he's a guy who's very accurate. And then you have then you have a receiver on that team that is probably the best receiver in the Canadian Football League as far as consistency and ability to make incredible catches. And that's talking about a league with Burnham in it.
Oh no, definitely. And I think the two important stats of this game, one was quarterback sacks. You get sacked 6 times, that changes the kind of your kind of approach to the game, and I think that's what happened with Dane Evans. He's trying to figure out can I hold on to the ball an extra second just to give that receiver a little bit of time to make the play. But really, for Trevor Harris, a lot of throws looked exactly the same. Snap, 2 seconds, throw. Snap, 2 seconds, throw. Quick, quick tempo throws. He didn't want to give that Hamilton pass rush a chance to get to him.
And
So
he
it was
did.
a matter of being, he's more of an efficient quarterback. He will take shots down the field, no doubt about it, but he's going to try to wear down the defense as much as possible, and that's why you saw a lot of those quick throws. And look, he was almost at 80%. He was 79.4% passing. Dane Evans was at 70%, which wasn't bad. Matthew Schultz was at 57.9%. But I mean, really, for Montreal, what won them that game was the running game.
And the interception that Trevor Harris threw was not really all his fault,
No,
but it was a great defensive play. I gotta say.
yeah, it was
Um,
a good play.
yeah, and the running game. The running game for Hamilton was non-existent, and that didn't help.
No, it wasn't, and that's you have to have that. I know some teams try they 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 don't totally shy away from it, but you have to have it in order if you're going to want to win, and they didn't have it in this game, and that makes you predictable, in my opinion.
Absolutely. On the other hand, Montreal's running attack was 143 yards between the two of them, Steinbeck and Fletcher, and
Two
Fletcher was the
different
guy who was more deadly, and Steinbeck's just going to get better next week. The Argos going to be they're going to have an issue with the running game.
they're gonna they're gonna have a big issue with the running game, especially when you have those two guys going. One that's kind of the speed bounce to the outside, and the other one is like, give me the ball and I'm gonna run through some people. Two different types of runners, and that makes it very tough for a defense to try to figure out coverage and all those things. And then when you want to try to, stuff the box, Trevor Harris is like, okay, I'm gonna find guys open for passes. Like that offense is run like a machine, and the only way you're gonna get to it is if you beat it. Like if you blow up the offensive line a little bit and try to get to the backfield, or you force the quarterback to make some mistakes. Toronto did that in the last game when they beat Montreal. They forced the mistakes and they didn't make the running game a factor. But at the same time, Stanback was only just getting back. Now he's
Yeah,
had a few games under his belt, and a running back gets better as the season goes along because they're finding their rhythm. They're getting a feel for the football. They're getting a feel for getting hit, bouncing off hits. So it's going to be a very like if Hamilton wants to take one thing is that it wasn't really the passing game that beat them. There was that one touchdown, but it was the running game that did them in because it kept their offense off the field, right? Not being
absolutely.
able to stop the running game, you can take your time. You can, each run, you can take your time with it. In this game, it wasn't a whole lot, but Montreal still had the advantage in possession time. And the other thing was how they played on second down. Second down, they were really good. They
Well,
were 164 yards on second down versus Hamilton, who only had 97.
well, you've got Eugene Lewis, who we talked about, and we both agree, one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the Canadian Football League, consistent and great catches. He had 98 yards for an average of 14 yards. Tim White, I'm looking at here, he had 142 yards for an average of 17.8. And then Dunbar, 17.3. And mind you, he only had 52 yards. But the point is that great offense at receiving, because of the lack of running, wasn't as effective. It was a great game for White, but unfortunately, it was all about him and Dunbar. There was no other part of the offense. Whereas what we talked about was the two running backs that had a pretty good game each, if they only had one running back running like that, which isn't bad in today's CFL. That is, they Montreal are really playing really well. Their defense, they really made Hamilton look like the team that didn't look like they were going to make the playoffs, but did. And I think Hamilton fans should be happy about that. But the reality is that Hamilton wasn't good enough to make it to the Eastern Final.
No, right? There was too much inconsistency throughout the season. And what we saw was one week they can look like one of the better teams in the league, especially offensively. The next, they look like a team that can barely make the playoffs, right? You weren't sure which Hamilton you were going to get. And they had some tough injuries, Dylan Wynn not being there. I said that I wrote in my preview that was going to be a factor in this game because, you know, you have a guy there that's, one of the better defensive tackles in the league, and he's able to kind of stop the run a little bit. But Montreal knew that and they took advantage of it. But Hamilton was only going to win this game if Dane Evans was going to be the better, at least I'm going to say the better quarterback, but at least a good enough quarterback to not make the mistakes and get the ball out. And I don't know if maybe they went to Matthew Schultz too late. I think they went with their plan, but I understand they like to go with the two quarterback method, but I think one guy needs to know he's going to have control of the offense.
It's not just that in my mind. The head coach in his press conference mentioned that no, we want to do two quarterbacks, yada yada yada, and all that stuff. Um, well, they could mix it up early, and not wait. You know, my definition a two quarterback system and his definition of a two quarterback system. I don't agree with his definition. My definition is you go in with the intent of using both quarterbacks and use them both simultaneously. As the game starts, you use them both. You alternate them, and that's what that to me is doing it that way. All you're doing the other way is you're just putting in the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That's and you're basically saying, well, the number one didn't play well, so we're putting it. Even though he said, no, that's not why we did it. We're just looking for a change. Yeah, but that's a change. You wanted to change the fact that your offense wasn't working. So I mean, let's face it, that you did not use the two quarterback system in the way that I think the way the CFL is going to go. If you watch, they've changed the rules to accommodate a second quarterback on a play, and he can be out there. We haven't seen it really utilized that much so far. If there was a team that could have utilized it, should have utilized it, and didn't utilize it, it was Hamilton.
No, exactly. I thought what worked as a two quarterback system for them was you get one of those like a Newman who can run the ball, right? Someone
Right.
because their running backs weren't getting it done. Obviously, not having Don Jackson hurt them. He's the kind of the West Hill has been doing really well, but when you have him and Don Jackson, you can kind of run a two running back attack. It makes that offense totally different. But you get a bigger quarterback who can kind of bust through the offensive line, bust through the line there, get those tough yards. Not all right. Here's one quarterback that's struggling to throw the ball. Let's throw in another one that's also kind of struggling to throw the ball and having to force the guy coming in. Look, you got to make some plays for us. We're down, and that's the worst thing because guess what? Montreal knew exactly that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, there's no surprise.
No surprise, right? This wasn't like you know when Hamilton had the two quarterback system last year, and the only reason why they needed the second quarterback was one kept getting hurt, and they needed to kind of switch him around, right? Mazzoli wasn't doing well against Toronto, so they brought in Dane Evans. What did Dane Evans do? 16 straight completed passes, went perfect in the game, didn't make a mistake, kept the ball, kept the chains moving, and they were found a way to get the win. What happens in the Grey Cup? Dane Evans gets hurt, Mazzoli comes in, and he does the same thing. Just got to keep the chains going, got to keep the ball moving, and they weren't doing that. Right? This was an offense that you know I'll give them credit. They found a way to make plays with Tim White. He was their best player. He also saw a lot of targets. 12 targets in that game. That's a lot. And the problem is they didn't really have anybody else behind him other than Steven Dunbar, as you mentioned, right? They didn't have that third or fourth receiver, and I'm a little surprised because Lamar Durant was someone I thought that they were going to use a lot when they had him. But I mean, we know why it didn't work was because Braylon Addison wasn't there. His injury changed the complexion of their season because that's how important
Domino.
you have.
Domino.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so,
Well, they
like,
were victims. Hamilton were victims of domino because their running game was not playing because of injury, and their defense. Dylan Wynn, who is their most spectacular defender,
mhm.
I consider him even more effective and more important than Simone Lawrence because what he does is he takes away the passing game of the opposition, and he tends to be a big reason. One of the reasons why the defense can sack quarterbacks. Now, when you don't have him, the threat of others on their own without him being in there as well becomes diminished. So, you know, Hamilton went in there with almost one hand tied behind their back. Their most pressing need in that game was their running game on the sidelines. And what they needed for inspiration and to be able to, try to slow down Montreal and or put them to a halt. Um, Dylan Wynn wasn't in the lineup either. So this was a case where injuries were a factor. I know football's a team sport. I understand that. But there are players that rise above the others enough that they literally make the players who are there better because they can fit into their, if you will, slipstream. It's the way. football works. Every team is built with players as a team, but the stars are the ones that make the other players elevate them to a better game.
No, it definitely is, right? It's nice when the guy kind of who not many expect to have a big game has a big game. There's always great stories, but it's the stars that stir the drink, right?
Yeah,
Look at the other side with BC. Who were their best players? Their star players, right? On Montreal
absolutely.
side, who was their best players? Their star players. There wasn't an unsung hero. There wasn't really an unsung hero in any of these games, and I think that's a lesson to be learned here, right? And that's why certain star players have been getting a big pay raise in the offseason, while other teams are like, well, we're going to try to do it by committee. Well, that committee needs someone to lead the charge, especially when the games get tough.
And that's when we find out, we discover, we witness the greatness in some players. I mean, I underestimated Nathan Rourke's ability to play under the conditions that he was being forced to play. Questionable health, and as I said, as the game wore on, he became more. It became obvious that he had an injury. He was limping. They spatted him in the second half. Between in the before the second half, he was taped up from heel to ankle. It was an admission that they needed to do something with his feet. He looked good considering 321 yards on a bum leg.
Yeah,
Imagine if he was healthy.
he only had one quarter, one quarter, one half to get him ready for this game, and he didn't exactly look great, right? Now,
He looked like Nathan Rourke.
he
it's,
did.
and it's what you said, David. When there are great players around, great players make great plays and play great games.
Yeah,
And this kid's going to be a goat. What goat is he going to be? We know he's going to be the best quarterback born in Canada since Russ Jackson. We know that because I think he's already established that there is no other quarterback in the Canadian Football League that ever played that's a Canadian. And there's been a few really good ones. They don't compare to this guy. A lot of quarterbacks that played great as Canadians, but didn't do what this kid's done in one short season.
exactly, and he the way he's doing it as well.
Absolutely, after an injury. I mean, this guy is this kid. We've heard about his dedication to the game of football. He's talking about, I'm not taking on any girlfriends. You're not seeing me on the internet. I'm 100% into the football. That's what I am. That's all I'm concentrating on. And if that's what he's doing, and this is how it works, there might be a lot of other players ripping up there. A lot of different things. There's something to be said for concentrating on something. If you really want something bad enough, you got to be dedicated to it. And this kid's talking about it. And all we're hearing from people is that it's true, that he's that dedicated.
Oh yeah, he probably the amount of work he put in this offseason to get to where he was night and day. That's all they talked about. Going into the season, all they talked about was how much work he put in, and then you realize, okay, like that's there was a reason. Like he really wants to take his game to the next level. He had tough shoes to fill.
Yeah,
I know
he
Mike
sure
Corral
did.
didn't exactly have the best of time in BC, but that's still a future CFL Hall of Famer that he was taking over for. And what did he do? He did something that no other quarterback in no Canadian quarterback has really done in this league. He was still second in touchdowns for the season, and he only played half the season. If you want to get an idea,
Boy, oh boy. Stats aren't important.
I'll say
Stats
this
aren't
too:
important.
the only
Yikes.
the
But they
only
do offer a perspective, right?
they do, and I said, and personally, I feel like the only quarterback, the only team that was going to be able to beat Winnipeg in the playoffs, like if it got to that point, was BC, because Nathan Rourke, you need a quarterback that's gonna bring his game to another level. because you're not beating Winnipeg with average play. You
Yeah,
need
you need a top notch offense to beat Winnipeg
or you
because
gotta you gotta slow down that offense enough that you can trade blows and keep it close and hope that
yeah,
do
but
what
I don't think there's a defense in the Canadian Football League that can do that without an offense. I mean,
Mhm.
you pick your team, David. Whatever team goes up against Winnipeg, and we can start with BC without without Nathan Rourke throwing the way he can throw, without a Nathan Rourke that can play the way he can play. Winnipeg's winning this game. Now the question is, how healthy is Nathan Rourke? Because if he can get healthy, and you talked about he didn't get any injections, no artificial assistance, other than physical therapy, no medical therapy. Um, he might be able to get some medical therapy, being the winter weather that they're going to be playing in, like you said. This kid's gonna get tested early. You and I talked about when he was injured. The biggest concern for both of us was, please don't make this kid rush back so that his career is threatened. That they do something that might long term, do something bad for him long term. I'm hoping that whatever they decide to do, whatever happens during the game against Winnipeg, I hope it does not have an effect on his long term career, because I just don't want to see any of what I see as in this kid's future diminished in any possible way.
No, and he also has to think about there's an opportunity for maybe some CFL team or NFL teams might want to have him do some work in the off season, do some workouts. And if he's injured, well, hey, he can't do that, and teams might get concerned about that injury. So I really do think with Nathan Rourke, you know, he knows his body better than anyone. He would not have been out there if because he doesn't want to put the team in a position where he's a liability, right? I think that when you saw him in that game, it took some time. Like this is the thing about BC. That defense had to be good because the offense wasn't getting anything going really
Well, they
until
did in the first half. If I was to judge their offense, it was night and day. It was good in the first half, and then when the second half came, they shut down Calgary so well that the scores that they made in the first half stood up, because essentially that's what happened. So I'd be happy with their offense in the first half, not so happy in the second half. They can't have that kind of offensive production against Winnipeg if they want to move on.
only if their defense is able to come up with some
Zeros.
yeah.
They're going to need zeros if that Winnipeg team is. I'm dying to see how hungry they are for a third Grey Cup. I'm hungry to see how hungry they are. I really am. Um, you know, they've got a they've got a head coach who's pretty humorous. He was talking about comparing his concern about playing BC. It's at about a level, maybe not even as high as whether he should wear shorts or not. The decision to whether he'll wear shorts or not. That's his way of saying you got to take this serious, and I think they will. But man, if you're not rooting for BC, you're a Winnipeg fan,
Yeah, no, for sure. I think everybody wants to see Nathan Rourke in the Grey Cup.
except
Personally,
for the Winnipeg fans.
yeah, I even think the CFL, like those up high, want to see Nathan Rourke in the Grey Cup. It's a
Oh,
because you can every national media will be there and they'll be covering the most exciting player in the game in Nathan Rourke. The guy that you can market the league around, the one that you can build your league around. If he's there at Grey Cup week, which Frank, we've been there, all the big boys come out for that. And to have
but it's
Nathan
it's going to be an enigma, though, right? It's going to be. There's the irony is that they're going to come out, and they need to come out because this kid may not be in the Canadian Football League much longer,
Mhm.
right? So this is a big deal, and I think the media knows it. If he makes it to the Grey Cup, anybody who doesn't understand that how great this kid is already and doesn't understand his trajectory, and doesn't understand that the NFL has quite a few teams. Many of them need quarterbacks. Um, that they're going to come sniffing around at this kid. They're going to come sniffing around, and the BC fans are saying, "Go away, come back another day," and I don't blame them. But yeah, this Grey Cup's going to be interesting if he gets in it. You're right; he is a ticket to interest in this game. We've seen it. Well, we forgot a little bit. I think if we all remember what it was like when he wasn't injured, before he got injured, it was all Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke. It was every CFL group was talking about the Canadian Football League, about Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke. Everybody was talking about this kid. Even yesterday, people mentioning, posting that, man, I'm not a BC fan, but this kid Nathan Rourke is something else. And CFL needs that kind of injection of greatness, because we're talking about real greatness here.
Yeah, they need their best players to to be like they need their star players to market this game, right? You can market around the great, it's Canadian, you can the Grey Cup, but it's a lot easier to market a really good player, right? That's what makes the NFL. I'm gonna bring this up. That's what makes the NFL such a marketable league. They have stars to market around, right? And the stars are usually the ones playing in the Super Bowl, right? You don't want to have to go to a Grey Cup and be like, so what's the quarterback matchup like? That doesn't appeal to me. Where's Nathan Rourke? Why isn't Nathan Rourke here? But
Buzz, 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 buzz,
there's a
buzz,
buzz
buzz,
around this kid.
buzz,
Everyone's
buzz, buzz, buzz,
There's a
buzz,
reason why the
buzz.
BC Lions were almost at 40,000 fans. They wanted to see that. Would it have been 40,000 fans if Nathan Rourke wasn't playing? It maybe there would have been a good number. I don't know if you get close to 40,000 if Nathan Rourke is not playing.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and you know what it is it's I don't, I understand people don't want to say it, they don't want to think it, they don't want to believe it because you can't have 9 teams with winning records, but winning means a lot. Now, winning by itself is not that good. You need to have promotion. You need to take advantage of the winning, and with the winning come great players, David. They kind of go hand in hand. You don't win without great players. So the promotion part. If you win, you should have. So there should be some meat on the bone, right? There should be something there. There should be something to sell. There must be some sort of buzz. It's your job to figure out why your team's winning and making sure the fans understand why they're winning and promoting it. Now, there have been some people who've complained about in Toronto that the promotion of the team in the game here has been less than desirable. But what we're seeing in BC, on the other hand, is they even created a buzz on who's going to do the national anthem.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's not just about what happens during the game; it's what happens before the game, what happens after the game. It's all about discussing the game when it's not on. Winning makes people talk. Interesting national anthem singers, interesting pregame, groups that they can get, entertainment. All these things factor in. None of them by themselves. That's one thing I've learned, especially in the Canadian Football League. None of those things by themselves can create enough excitement to fill the stadium. You got to have a team that plays well. Then you got to have all the entertainment that people want to see, that generates excitement. So, this is what BC's done. This is why people are talking about great that they've got the Grey Cup after Hamilton next year. Uh, Everybody's confident they're going to do something that will elevate the game and the Canadian Football League, which is ultimately what everybody wants that's involved in the Canadian Football League.
I don't go back to this time, but you're telling me Rocket Ishmael didn't sell a lot of tickets in Toronto?
Absolutely did, but if the team didn't win, it wouldn't be because he didn't play. That he played well. It would be because he didn't. He played well. They won, and they promoted it. To me, it's not. It's not one or the other. There has to be a great play by the team because how do you promote lousy play?
Yeah. And the
You know,
best, I mean, look. the most popular player in Toronto, CFL player in Toronto, and the most popular person in the CFL in Toronto remains Pinball Clemens,
And
right?
why is that?
He
His
was
enthusiasm,
his enthusiasm, his passion, and he was a
personality.
really good player. He
Yes.
was a good player.
Well, he could have had all those things and not been a good player, and he wouldn't be as popular as he is. That he's a perfect example of the point. You know, it's great when look at it a different way. It's fantastic when players are great, and then what happens when they're great human beings? Oh my God, you hit the lottery. Wayne Gretzky. Gets the reputation. You look at a lot of these great players in history. The ones that we look at proudfully become even bigger. Michael Jordan. Kyrie Irving is not going to be that popular because he alienates a certain group of people. Sports is like that. Just because you're great doesn't mean you're a great tool to promote. A great thing to promote. So this is why in BC they've got a great quarterback. They've got a team playing really well. They've got a fan base that hasn't seen this kind of success in a while. All these things raise the excitement level, and essentially they're not just creating interest, they're reviving interest. And that's, to me, that's the template that the Argos should be working on. And that's, I'm hoping to see that at some point where they revive the interest in the Argos. It doesn't mean that the 80-year-olds that were around in the 70s come to the game. It's the enthusiasm, it's the way the game's played, it's the way it's promoted. The one problem is in this town, if the media doesn't promote it, the fans sometimes won't follow. Unfortunately, in Toronto, people got to be told you've got a great team or it's a great organization, or if you're not the Maple Leafs.
Well, that's it right there. You have to get the word out. You have to get people, not just get the word out, but get the word out about how good
A
it is,
word that a word that sells. A word that has traction.
and a word that doesn't have any, I wouldn't say controversy, but the same old sorry storyline surrounding it, right? Oh, the CFL playoffs in Toronto. Guarantee they're not even going to sell at the stadium. Like, no, you got to change. Hey, we're in the CFL East final. We're doing pretty well on tickets. I looked. I meant to. I
Well, they're
was.
not going to, by virtue of them not opening up the upper bowl, they're admitting that they're going to have less than 20,000 people.
I think if you don't open up the upper bowl, you can get roughly 24 to 25,000.
But there's no messaging that says they're opening the upper bowl yet.
Oh,
Will that change?
they have to sell a lot of tickets to do that. Like,
Over
I
20.
from what I've seen, most of the tickets remain on that east grandstand, that east side that always is a struggle to sell. But here's the thing: if you want to get in to watch a Argo playoff game, the most it's going to run you is about well, actually, these are if you want the field seats, which you don't need the field seats. I'd say this to people: you can buy the cheapest ticket at BMO Field, and it's the best view of any a venue I've been at for any sporting event. Like $40 gets you into the CFL's East Final. So I don't want Argo fans to complain that it's because of price, because even you got a bunch of $40, $50, $67 tickets versus what it costs to go and watch the other teams in Toronto, especially playoff time, and you almost have to decide between a mortgage payment or going to the game. So,
Oh, and by the way, on that topic, for those of you that might be interested, there's always David Knott who has the ability to offer discounts. He has a group discount plan. So if you look up David Knott on Facebook, David Knott, Knott, um, he'll put you together with a 20. I think it's a 25% discount. So on a $40 ticket, you'll be paying 30. I think. Don't count on it, but something to that effect. So if you want to save a couple of a couple of bucks, and if that's what it takes to convince you to go, there's your opportunity.
Everybody likes a deal. I'll tell you that. If they can get a deal, they'll take it. That's for sure.
That's the price of that's half the price of parking, a little less.
Yeah, and you can. It's a 1 o'clock game, so transit is definitely an option. So yeah, I would say there's good enough reason to go to the game if you're looking for an inexpensive option. They're still there, but the Argos have to do a really hard push. Not late either. They got to get it. Like I want you. We have you have to. I haven't really seen much yet, but this is the time that they really got to start pushing this game.
As soon as Montreal won, it should have started.
And they started a little bit, but the problem here is, and I know we will want to talk about the game. The problem here also is they're advertising to the same people. They gotta find a way to bring in new people, and it's all on the phone. Like they're probably gonna have, if there's like a Raptors or Leafs game, they're probably gonna have a player there. Luckily, this time they won't be breaking COVID rules. I don't know if you remember that from last year, almost not having your starting quarterback play in the game because he went to a Raptors game. Still won't forget that one. But it's got you have to find ways to get people, attract the people who would watch the game at home and is on the fence about going. That's the first group you have to get. Get those who would say, I don't know if I want to go all the way down. Give them a reason to come down. That's the big one.
Absolutely, that's the important factor, and also figure out where their target audience is. When I say target audience, think of a receiver and think of targets, right? So you got to send the ball where you know people might catch it. And in this case, you've got to send the information and draw the attention in the places that people may be interested. And I think they should do, and I know they do it, but key on the fact you brought it up quite eloquently. Actually, it's a playoff game. It In every sport, once you get to playoffs, the excitement level it exponentially gets more exciting. It just automatically gets exciting because everything's at stake. And in football, it's win or go home. So I don't know how much more pressure you want in a game than that. Win or go home. That's a lot of pressure, and that pressure breeds a lot of competition, and that competition is why fans will find themselves on the edge of their seats, which is essentially what you hope people will get the chance to experience. And I defy anybody who goes, let's say, to this game, and if it's played the way it should be played, which it probably will, it'll be a tough game. I really am not sure who's going to win this game. Ask me, and I'm going to tell you, I'm really not sure. I like what Harris brings to the game. McLeod brings enough, but the Argo defense, I'm talking about the game now, but only in the promotional sense. There's going to be some. It's going to engage the fans in a way that every fan wants to be engaged when they go to a sporting event.
Yeah. I mean, the playoff time is the best time in any sport, right?
It's
There's a
the time.
different It's because, especially in football, win or go home. Nothing better than that. The intensity, the stakes being so high. But I think there's going to be a few Toronto fans that are a lot happier that it's not Hamilton in this game. I know that CFL would have preferred Hamilton for the ticket sales, but I think a lot of Toronto fans who went through what happened last year are really happy that it's Montreal this time around. And look, even if the Toronto were to get
And
maybe
you're not talking about Toronto losing. You're talking about the post game,
just
the
feeling
the
between the
drama that has nothing to do with football.
yes, exactly. And I think also what needs to be said here too is even if Toronto, let's say, gets 15,000, Montreal fans need to come too. You got to come support your team.
There'll be a few. There's always a few Montreal fans when they come. Not as many clearly as Hamilton, but here's what I'm going to suggest. there's going to be more pressure on Montreal fans to be here this weekend than there have ever has ever been for a
Mm.
Montreal game in Toronto, because the last time these two teams played for a game that really mattered was in 2012, and it happened at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. I was there. I forget the section, but boy, was I far away from the game. Um, yeah, and that other than that, that's it. So in the last 10 years, so we're talking almost about a game that's generational and in reasons why people should come to the game. So I can see a lot of Montreal fans coming to this game. I'm going to put a number on it. I'm going to say if I said 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000 people from Quebec, we'll be able to see them in the stands, right?
Should be able to.
Right. So I think that we'll see that. We'll see maybe 1,000, 1,500 Montreal fans at the game, which will help in a way, not like Hamilton, because I think Hamilton like had two or 2,500 last year, something like that. They sold something like that to Hamilton fans. But the important thing here is, I think, is that the game is between Toronto and Montreal. These are city rivals that you know Toronto and Montreal have a lot of reason to not like each other and to understand the competition level between the two towns. So I don't know if bagels and pork will be exchanged between the two mayors, but I'm sure there's going to be a little bet on the side between the two mayors. And I do know that when it comes to Toronto and Montreal, that there's a there's a factor there that says Toronto Montreal, and I admit it comes from hockey, right? The Toronto Montreal rivalry in hockey, it can move over to football, and I think it will.
And you also got a Montreal owner who's going to push very hard.
Oh my goodness.
He's going to be, some call him annoying on Twitter, but it's a good annoying. It keeps the fans engaged. But what do you think happens this, like, okay, that game?
I call him all knowing. All knowing.
Um,
Because he knows what's going to happen and it doesn't, and that makes it annoying.
I know. I don't think many would forget that guarantee. That
Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day,
this is true. I've heard that one
right?
before.
Probably from me. It's going to be great. The game's going to be great. Let's talk about Bo Levi Mitchell coming in to the Calgary game. Um, I guess unless people use the term, I hate the term. I really don't like the term, but garbage time.
Uh,
Um, I'm not really sure that's what we could call he came in at, but
no, it wasn't garbage time. No.
right. And he was 8 for 11, 72.7%, 147 yards in a very, very short period of time. Did he sell his services elsewhere?
I think for him it showed that maybe don't close the chapter on his playing career just yet.
I don't think so.
I
That to me
see
proves it isn't.
I see two teams that could realistically go after him this offseason. Saskatchewan
That one's a given.
and Hamilton. This game, what impressed me about Bolivar Mitchell, he sat. He has been sitting. He is not the number one quarterback anymore. They made it known that he wasn't going to be the number one quarterback anymore. And he came out of the gate 8 for 11, 147 yards. He was the only reason why this game was not a complete blowout. Sure, he didn't throw a touchdown, but he moved that ball a lot better, in my opinion, than Jake Mayer did. Now, Jake Mayer has never been in this position before. It is a learning
First
experience.
time playoff experience.
Bo Levi Mitchell even says they're in good hands, but he's made it known. He's done with Calgary. I don't think he's finished with his playing career yet. I think he'll still try to stick around a little
Well,
longer.
that fourth quarter is going to stick, in his head too. There's no doubt in his mind. I don't see how anybody could have any doubt in their mind after having that kind of play in those few minutes and those few throws that they threw. I just don't see him saying it's over after that. You know,
No,
so that was a great entree to a move, and you're right. Hamilton could be in the works. Now they've got Evans signed for I think what 2 years. I think it's 2 years. I'm not sure if it's three. I don't think it's three. I think it's two. But regardless,
he signed a 2-year contract extension, but how much of that is guaranteed?
that's the big question, right? That's the question that the camp answers. And if you're Bo Levi Mitchell, you're going to have to. I was joking with Aaron that he's going to have to take a haircut, and there might not be much hair left on his head. That's the kind of haircut he's going to have to take. And basically, he's going to make a deal that says, if I do this, it's all going to be about performance bonuses. Whatever they can do legally that contracts can do in the Canadian Football League, it'll be loaded up that way more than it will be salary or guaranteed money. Actually, you could do both. You could get a decent amount of guaranteed money, but not enough to hurt the cap, and then go with the bonuses and then figure out what they're going to do if he hits all his bonuses.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? A lot of his money, some of it's hard money, a lot of it also has to do with compensation in terms of the cap, like his hitting certain bonuses, housing. There's a lot of intricate parts, but I'm very curious to know if that's a contract that they like. Are they going to commit to him next season? That's got to be the first question,
Pick up the contract or start fresh is your question.
or see if another
That's a
team.
good question. But I got to tell you, if there's a team that's suited to take on a great player from another team, especially a quarterback, and bring them to their franchise and have done it before, and it wouldn't be a surprise to do it again. I have to say, you're talking about Hamilton. That would not surprise me at all. Hamilton has brought in great quarterbacks from other teams that have had a long history at other teams. Hamilton is a place where players find themselves, and I say this in the most complimentary sense, is that great players from elsewhere are treated so well in Hamilton, it's like they never left where they left.
Yeah.
We've seen it. We've seen it with many players. That's the one thing that Hamilton does. They have a wonderful way of wrapping their arms around players that used to be the enemy. They do it better than anyone, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably right. That's thinking of what you said and looking for reasons to disagree. The only thing that I would hold back, the devil's advocate in me talks about money. That's the only issue because they have a lot of money that they spent. They really felt that Evans was their guy, and they made him feel like he was their guy. So much so that they couldn't keep Mazzoli around.
Yeah, that's gonna be the I think one of the bigger questions of the off season, and it'll be intriguing to see if that carousel changes a little bit more and who's gonna benefit from having that option.
Well, if he goes to Hamilton, does it spring Evans loose? I don't know.
Definitely. I don't think
Right?
if Bo Levi Mitchell's going to a team, he's got to be the guy. I don't think he's going to a team where they feel like they have to have a second guy behind him.
You don't think he could do what Harris did? Wait in
No,
the wings? Because that's what Harris did, right? He didn't go to Montreal as the number one.
he could, but we'll see.
You know, Harris went and believed in himself enough that he, bided his time, didn't get in the way, let the Adams show take place, and an opportunity opened itself up. Coaches changed, and but mind you, though, the coach before he left gave the ball to him.
I think we're getting told Frank to wrap.
Oh, okay, all right,
Until next time.
yeah. Till next time. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching.